So Shelly and I tried our hardest to capture everything about this destination in one recording, but then we realized that was impossible. So today we bring you part one of why we chose Uganda for our African safari.
Welcome to the Travel More podcast.
Each episode, we share custom itineraries, travel hacks, expert advice, and even stories of our past travel failures to help you level up your travel game.
I'm Shelly, a lover of plans, itineraries, and cheap flights. I'm an expert deal finder with one eye always on the budget.
And I'm Bruce, the improviser, ready to pick up where plans fail to turn letdowns into unexpected trip favorites. We're here to bust through barriers that stop you from making your travel dreams a reality.
So book that flight, buy the tickets, and say hello to your next adventure.
This is the Travel More podcast.
Welcome back to the Travel More podcast.
Welcome.
We're getting fancy up in here. Shelly and I spent the weekend kind of rearranging our office. Well, it started as a dining room.
Yeah,
Then
that feels like a long time ago now.
That's a long time ago. Now it is truly a home office.
Yeah,
We've got
fully home office.
Oh yeah, 2 new desks. We got mic stands, guys. Dude, we're rising up.
So I feel like at this point we should tell you
Literally
that
rising up
we
with a
have
stand.
been recording these podcasts with the microphones sitting on the boxes they came in, like on our dining room table.
Well, to be fair, they're on a stand, on a desk stand, on the box. I
guess
get
that's
the right height.
true. Right, it was just to get the right height because otherwise we'd be like squatting down to do it. And it was like, this makes sense. So yeah, it was like, I don't know how to explain it. It was just like on the little box. So we have finally, after a year, upgraded to having mic stands, which of course were like, I don't know, like $40 each. It wasn't even
It
like...
wasn't bad. No,
I'm just saying it wasn't like this like huge spend that we've been like waiting to do. We could have done this forever ago.
But we did just spend like 30 minutes trying to figure out how we're going to sit. And then I realized that their cables are kind of short and they still need to go to the computer. But ultimately, we're kind of excited because eventually we'd love to do some video while we record. Mm-hmm. So this was part of that process. So
yeah,
a couple of things have been changing. We also just wanted to note that you might see a new picture for the podcast,
yes,
which
you
we're
might have
so
noticed.
excited to kind of talk about today, our rebranding of the website and the podcast art. So we hope everybody enjoys it. And we want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Lainey.
Our bestie. Thank goodness. Honestly, like, I don't know where we would be without Lainey. She's our graphic designer, and she's helping with us all kinds of projects. But one big one was kind of this rebranding, and she was just awesome. And I don't know how people's brain works like that because I do a lot of things well, but one thing I do incredibly not well is like graphic design work of any kind.
Yeah,
like anytime
exactly.
I put together things on Canva, I'm like, this looks like someone threw up on it. Like it literally doesn't make sense. So thank goodness for people like Lainey at Clear Fork Creative, by the way. Although I think she's so popular, her book's almost full. But when she comes back,
either way, super
it's
recommend her. She's awesome, and we hope you guys like the new design. We're digging it a lot over here. So.
Yeah, we love it. So today is maybe one of my favorite things to talk about of all time. In fact, I feel like people have been asking me for 2 years to like stop talking about it. And
what,
now,
planning and budgeting or
Uganda.
Yeah.
Like I'm just so pumped
I can't believe
about
it's taken us this long to recap our travels to Uganda because it's one of the biggest trips I think we've ever taken, and
I think we wanted to give it time.
I think it had to settle and rest.
Yeah, but not only that, like I wanted to make sure that like we gave it its full like grandeur. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to start out with it because like, you know, you're just starting out, and so like I feel like we're like kind of got a groove going now, and like now's the time.
It is the time, and you know, I think we're gonna have more than one episode to talk about Uganda.
Yeah.
But today we're really gonna focus on, you know, why did we choose Uganda to go for like an African safari? So if you're into bucket list type of trips, today's episode is definitely for you because this is definitely up there. You know, like it's one of the top. I think you ask a lot of people like, what are some of your top bucket list journeys and adventures? And I think getting out to see wildlife, especially like classic African safari, is a popular one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a really popular one, I think. And it's funny you say, like, you know, like, why did we choose Uganda? Because even when we went to Uganda, like, the Ugandans asked, like, why did you choose Uganda?
Why'd you come here?
Not that people don't go, because they definitely do. But
No,
it's not typically people's, like, first African country, is what they told us.
Yeah, and it's also not... I don't know that we saw many people from the United States.
No. In fact, we only really saw like a group. Actually, this is a pretty funny story to start off with. So we were in our very first hotel and we went for breakfast, like the first day that we were there. And we were kind of shell-shocked still. Like we had just landed and we were kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're in Africa right now. And we're eating this beautiful breakfast layout. And this woman comes up to me and she's American and she says, are you a teacher? And I said, yeah. And she's like, oh, so you're with our group? And I was like, oh no, I have no idea what you're talking about. But it was just so funny because I was like, it was literally a group of science teachers, which I guess isn't that like outrageous thinking about like going to Africa.
True.
And
it's definitely a sciencey type.
Right. But it was just so funny because it was the very first thing someone asked me is like, are you a science teacher? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, but I have nothing to do with that group.
Well, you look like them. You sound like them. You must be the American teacher group, right?
Yeah, right. We did follow that group around quite a bit.
But that was actually, I didn't realize this would happen, but there's kind of a path, which makes sense because there's several parks in popular areas. And we did see people along the way, which even our guides talked about. It's kind of nice. Like
it's kind of fun.
It is fun because, you may not be traveling with them, but you get to see and experience. You might see them when you're going on game drives. And I really like that. It felt, and honestly, I think that might be one of the first points. And Shelly might look at me and be like, I wrote that later in the script. But I'm just thinking about it now, like Uganda is an amazing country. And there are some countries in Africa that are way more established in terms of safaris.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, what you get in Uganda is a much more personal feeling and connection to people there. And I feel like even the people on the circuit of where we went, that's why we kept seeing them. It's like there's only so many people going out at a time, not like 100 kind of like game driving trucks or whatever out.
Yeah.
Like in Kenya or something or other places.
Yeah, it's funny you're bringing this up. So I actually was going to go more into like why we chose Uganda and then kind of our experience, but we can start here. Definitely that is the thing that is big to me when I'm telling people to like consider Uganda for their African safari is we've never been on a Kenyan safari. We've never been on a Tanzanian safari. And I am sure those countries are absolutely beautiful. And in fact, Tanzania is high on our list. But I will just say that I've heard it can be pretty crowded. And like never once in Uganda did I feel like I was like huddled together to like look at a lion.
No.
There may have been 2 or 3 safari vehicles. Like it was really very sparse. And it was kind of fun. Like it was almost like an adventure when we would go for game drives because it would be like one would pull up beside us and be like, have you guys seen the leopard? We heard someone saw one early this morning or, like something like that. Or they saw one yesterday over here. Like, have you guys seen him? And we're like, no. And it would be like, when we did hear it, you like see somebody like zoom past or like come up really fast on us and they'd come by and you're like, oh, I know they have something good.
Yeah,
and they'd be like, they saw this and that. Like, we're going too. Like, we're all going and see if we can find it. And it was fun. Like, I mean, it's all fun no matter what you do. But once you've started seeing these amazing animals kind of over and over and over again, not that it gets boring in any way, but just this idea that like, it's almost like a chase.
Yes.
Like when it becomes more like that, where it's
you're on
like,
the hunt.
Yeah, like you don't see as many like lions, for example, in Uganda as you probably do in like Kenya.
Yeah. Or maybe South Africa, other places are maybe more traveled, especially by Americans.
Mm-hmm. Like we did see lions. We probably saw
a couple times,
probably like 7 or 8 lions. So it was definitely like we saw lions, we saw cubs, like we saw the whole thing. But like if you went on a Kenyan safari, you may see dozens of lions. So it wasn't like that. But I think that the hunt almost like it just made it so exciting,
enhanced it. Yes.
Yeah, like when you found something because it was just like there he is, like and like you would even talk like because the Ugandans. The tour guides would talk to each other.
Yes, they would all radio and kind of communicate.
Mm-hmm. And even though the official language in Uganda is English, obviously they all speak their own dialects.
Yeah,
and so
there's
they
like 50 different languages.
Which was fun because our tour guide taught you like a whole bunch. We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
So in any case, they would talk to themselves, and then we would often talk to the people in the back and be like, so what you guys have found today? Like, how's it been this morning? That and this and that. So yeah, I just thought it was fun. Anyways, let's backtrack just a little bit. to talk about how we figured out Uganda in the first place.
Yeah, so let's set the scene.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
we were looking for a trip that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do with like children.
Yeah.
And because Shelly and I were kind of thinking, we're 30,
Yeah.
and we've done some trips, but we know we have summer. We kind of want to save up, and before we think about anything like having a kid, why don't we find a trip that would be wild and crazy to do?
Yeah,
like
it would be, not that it couldn't be done,
No.
but that it would be very difficult with kids. It was like, let's just do all those things right now.
Yes.
While we still don't have kids. So that was, I think, the impetus to...
Yeah, like what would we do?
The African
it's like
safari,
different
yeah.
than going on a trip to like, I don't know, France, like we did. We did Paris. Like that's not...
I feel pretty confident in being able to bring even very small kids pretty much anywhere in Europe. And even a lot of places in like South America, Australia. Like I just felt like I could probably manage that. Would I want to bring a very small kid? Could I even bring a really small kid?
Well, no, you couldn't even. That's
Right.
the other thing. Like, especially if you're going to go trekking for certain animals.
Right, they would be like 14, I think.
Yeah, I think you need to be a teenager at least. So it's one of those things that it's really just not for young kids.
Right. And yes, so we were like, let's do it. I mean, like we have the time, we have the money, like let's go for it. So when we were thinking African safari, which honestly I think I kind of just like spurred on Bruce one like afternoon.
Well, yeah, because you were searching for things. It wasn't, we were looking at other types of adventurous type travel.
Yeah, at one point we were going to go backpacking across Europe.
Yep.
Which also would have been amazing. But again, I was like, I think I could split that up into a whole bunch of smaller trips.
Right.
Just as easily. And so I was like, okay, let me think about something even further outside the box. And that's where we got to. Actually, the two I think that we really looked at was like Southeast Asia, kind of like island hopping, and the African safari. And the more and more I looked into it, I just could not I couldn't leave the African safari. I was like, no, I just have to
animals,
do it.
Dude.
Yeah.
And then, so Shelly, we started looking, and one key thing was like sustainable and responsible type travel. So pretty quickly, because we wanted to make sure wherever we were booking that they were vetted and supporting local people. And there are a lot of companies out there, especially for African safari, that are developed, outside of their country.
Yeah, we really, really wanted to try to make sure that like as much as possible, like our dollars were going back into the local. Yeah.
Yep.
And we found a great company for that. And because they're literally in Kampala. So like they are Africans, they're Ugandans.
Yes.
And they live in Uganda, and so I like that. Not that I'm like totally dissing like the American companies or like there's a big Dutch company, I think, that does African safaris. Not that I'm saying they're terrible companies, shouldn't work with them. We just found it was really important to us to try to find an African tour company.
Yeah, something that's owned and supported by people that are there. And luckily we found Primate World Safari.
Oh, we love them.
We've got to shout George, our guide, and Jackson.
Don't worry.
I got to say, we're going to say it more than once. We got to say it out now.
They're
the best.
They're good friends of ours still. We talk to them very often. But anyway, so I was looking at this like responsible travel website, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't know much about the differences between African countries in terms of safari. But I was looking, and I saw that you could trek with gorillas, and like without any thoughts of like, what's the safety like of trekking with gorillas? I immediately was like, Bruce, this is the one we're doing.
Oh yeah. Well, once he showed me gorillas, I was like, where? I didn't even register that it was possible that you could go see them.
I had no idea. Also, you should know Bruce is kind of obsessed with gorillas.
I love them. They're my favorite.
I was gonna say he
Kindred.
loves them. When we go to zoos or whatever, you can like often find Bruce just
the gorillas are the best of all the primates. I'm telling you.
So when I saw that, I was like, oh, we have to do this for Bruce because he loves gorillas. And also, like, what? It just feels like a thing that like shouldn't exist, but it does. But it's very safe.
Also,
we're gonna talk about gorilla trekking.
It also felt like something that I was like, we can do this,
right?
Like,
that's what I mean.
Like, I thought, I don't know. I always pictured like going out in jeeps or whatever and camping in the savannah. It just felt like out of reach for.
Yeah.
I thought it would be so expensive that only people who have like crazy wealth could go do these adventurous type travel.
Yeah, I mean that's a really great segue into the cost of Uganda. That is the next piece. Is like, African safaris are notoriously expensive. Whenever I had heard of them, like Bruce is saying, like if you wanted any kind of like personalized experience, you're gonna pay 10, 15 grand a person, 20 grand a person. Like, I'm seeing like Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard do that like Reigns of Africa dance, and I'm like, yeah, well, they can do it, you know, because they're millionaires.
That was in my mind too. I'm like, how are we ever gonna do this? This is the kind of people who go do this are like,
they're way
crazy.
We're like literally working schools, and now to be fair, we work in a state that pays teachers well, so like we do have a decent salary. We don't have kids. And we live pretty like frugally. Besides the travel,
we focus on our savings for travel. Right. So definitely, we're spending that. You know.
Yeah, we definitely focus a lot on that. But just to give a full transparency, Uganda was definitely on the cheaper side of the Kenyan, Tanzania, South Africa type tours. But here's what it is. So I reached out to Jackson, our friend at Primate World Safaris, because I found the gorilla trekking and like just kind of the overall package I really loved. I think it was a 5 or 7 day tour, and I knew we could spend a little more than what they were asking for that. So I kind of reached out to him and I was like, hey, like here's our budget, which just so you know was $5,000 a person. So like it's a decently priced vacation. We get that.
Yeah, we knew. We were saving for this. This was like a bucket list trip.
Yeah, this wasn't just like maybe we'll do this. Oh, yeah, let's do it next month. This was like we saved for a full year, cut back on things. Bruce took extra singing gigs. Like, you know, we did the whole 9 yards. But I reached out to Jackson and I was like, hey, this one is like, you know, 3 or 4 grand a person. Like, what can I get for 5 grand that kind of goes in the same realm of like this, you know, trek? Because it was like a few different places I really wanted to do. And we went back and forth, and they had some deals going because it was right after COVID, and they were trying to get the tourism restarted. And we ended up booking a 17-day tour in Uganda for it was a little over 5,000. I think it was like 550 or something. But like for 17 days, I'll pay the extra $500. You know what I mean? Like, when else are we getting out there? That was our thought. Although now we're like, when else can we get out there? Because it literally changed our minds that much.
Oh, 100%. And dude, the best part about this, so when we were thinking about the cost of this tour, one of the things we're looking at is like the Jeep that you take can fit like 6 people.
Yeah.
So this entire time, legit, I think until we got there.
No, like until we woke up the next morning.
Until the next morning.
Got in the car again.
I was fully expecting this to be a tour with like 6 people.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's just like me, Shelly, and our guy George for like this whole over 2 weeks.
All 17 days. I
was like, what? We got a private tour. Because that's how it works. Like they go as the group can be up to that size. But generally, you're paying price per person, and it is what it is, unless you need a second car. And in that case, it's still the same, essentially. You have 2 guides.
Right.
But that blew my mind. So we were getting, like, this private, locally curated, and, like, masterfully crafted tour with some of the nicest and knowledgeable people I've met traveling.
Ever.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
And, and to feel... And like I won't deny the fact that Uganda is a country that is definitely not nearly as developed in its infrastructure compared to some of its neighbors like Rwanda or Kenya or Tanzania. But man, I would not let that stop you from exploring and looking into this, because the people that are there and what they put in place to like ensure you have what you need, and also have different levels of what you could buy. Because like you could totally go, like there were people we met, like students and people working in like game areas and reserves that were taking boda like motorcycles as like their taxis and doing it way cheap. So I would say what we paid for was like
the medium tier,
which to us was definitely, I would consider like luxurious, like super luxurious what we were to access. And
for us, like, I mean, you were staying at like, honestly, most of the time Bruce and I are staying at like, Hampton Inns and like Marriott, like loft Marriotts and like Hyatt City Center thing, Hyatt houses. Like we're really like, we're not staying in hostels, but we're definitely picking the cheaper of the hotel options.
Say moderate range
almost
these
always.
Days.
Yeah. But I just mean, so if you're trying to get like an idea of like what our like normal quote unquote looks like and what we thought was like much more luxury, which was this African safari, that's kind of where I would like consider it. So like if you're used to really nice hotels, then you may think like, no, this is mid-tier. But like for us, every single one of these places we went was like mind-blowing. And honestly, we're also excited travelers. So it doesn't take a lot to excite us. Like we kind of come in excited to learn and excited to see.
I think most people would have been blown away.
That's probably true.
Now you have to understand, like we were definitely staying the beauty of it is we wanted to stay in near the various like reserves and parks.
Yeah.
So some of the places we stayed were like luxury camping, but they had nice amenities. You know what I mean? So if someone is expecting air conditioning everywhere you go, or like, you know, we almost had all these amenities.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I'm trying to
there
think,
only
the only
a couple
one was
places that didn't have air conditioning, and it was not nearly as hot.
no, the weather
we
was
thought.
really like moderate most of the time. Like
Right.
some days it got warmer during the day, but
There was one time it was like particularly warm, and that's when we were like in the savannah. But I digress. Going back, so when we kind of met George and everything, then he kind of took us off on our 17-day adventure. But going back to what you were saying about like how the fact that it was just the three of us, I think that honestly kind of made the trip in a lot of ways, because he was able to customize things like on the fly for us.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that in itself is the beauty of Uganda. Like, I know that like that's also just George, because he's an amazing person and a great tour guide, but I don't know that it's so easy to customize when it's already like a pretty big tourist destination. But when you're kind of like on the ground floor of a tourist destination, like it's not quite like,
yeah, and
you
especially
know,
if you went with
trending.
a bigger group.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you're going to have nearly the experience.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't say enough about Primate World or George and Jackson, because they obviously had connections with like all the park rangers, and they were locally driven by the community. They knew everybody.
Right.
And that made all the difference for us. Like, we got to meet the owners of all the like lodges and hotels we stayed at. You know, we definitely got room upgrades. It was amazing. And they treat their guests with such like hospitality, and I think it's awesome. So I never felt like I could tip people enough, you know, because I was, you know, going back to the price, I don't know if we said the full, so we said, what was it, $5,000 a person all together. We spent about $15,000.
Yeah, because
for the trip.
you know, the plane tickets, no matter how much I got them down, they were still pretty expensive. I think they were about $1,100 a piece.
Well, getting there is a little challenging from the United States.
Right,
You
it's
kinda,
like 3 flights.
Yeah, there's different ways you can go, but there's like 3 flights.
Yeah, I think there is a way to go for 2 now, but in any case, we went 3 for that $1,100 price point, and then, you know, we just set aside some money for souvenirs, which were not very expensive, and I think we overpaid on purpose for all of them.
Yeah.
And then we tipped, like Bruce is saying, we tipped everyone essentially the highest bill amount we could. So the highest bill in Uganda is 50,000 shillings.
Which I think at the time was like $15 American.
It's like 13. Yeah, 13. But like essentially 15. And we would just give everybody 50,000. Or 50,000.
Yeah, so let's talk about, like, including the tips and everything, like what that 15,000 got us. And I think we should run down just a general, like, all the various experiences we got to have.
This is going to be wild. Let's see if we can remember everything. It was honestly, like, mind-blowing what we got. And I would pay it again and again and again
100%.
and again. Like, I would eat just ramen noodles every night to be able to go again, because it really was such a great experience. All right, day 1. We arrived, not much happened. The airport was chaotic.
It was a little chaotic.
It was kind of scary. Not scary in like a safety way. Scary because there was like bags everywhere, and I was like, "Oh my gosh! Like, is this gonna be a big deal?" It was not. It was totally easy. It took forever to change over some currency and get a SIM card, but once all that was set, it was very easy. It just took a while.
Yeah, I think it was a long travel, so I think we were both kind of like shell shocked of like sleep.
Well, it did take a minute, because even Jackson was like, "I didn't know if you guys were coming," and I was like, "Oh no, we're here.
That
Please
was us.
take
I think
us."
we were very careful on what SIM card we were gonna get, but like there were people right there that would, you know, exchange the cash.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a real quick tip about cash. Make sure if you bring cash, it's got to be new.
And like perfect.
And like perfect, no markings on it, or else they're gonna be like, "Nah, we don't trust it."
Yeah,
which makes
there's
sense.
a lot of fraud.
Yeah,
with
there's
American
fraud. So
money.
you want to make sure you have like fresh, crisp bills from your bank.
Yeah. So day 2. So we went to our beautiful Cassia Lodge, which was like on Lake Victoria. Honestly, just breathtakingly pretty. Both Bruce and I literally feel like we just couldn't stop smiling, and we're like, "What is happening right now? Like, where are
amazing.
we?" It's like bringing back all these memories. And also everywhere we went, we were greeted with like fresh pressed juice.
Yes, I
every
love
single
that.
place. Some
And
places
fruit.
with like warm or cold towels, depending on like where we were.
Right.
So for us, this is way above like what we get
Well, it's
anywhere
cool
that
because
we
like
travel.
it was clear that the tourism industry there and the hospitality industry had a high standard.
Yes.
For anywhere you went, like everybody was all about like they grab your bags, they give you like refreshment. It was just the standard, and it was awesome.
It was awesome. So we kind of just hung out there. We had dinner there on their like terrace, like on our balcony. It was just amazing. And got to look over Lake Victoria. So that was a great way to start the day. And the next day we started very early, which is actually just the theme of this trip,
Yeah.
which was...
Sleep on the plane?
Yeah, that was George's quote to us. You can sleep on the plane. And that's pretty much the only place we slept. So the second day we went on a tour of Kampala, their pretty much only major city. It's also pretty wild. There are streets, but like no street signs.
Yeah.
They're kind of just roadways, so it's hard to find things sometimes. But we went to different like big sites. Like there's a huge like a Muslim mosque.
Yeah, there's a mosque. There's a couple like various religious structures.
But then
that
we
have
like
been there.
learned about like the kingdoms of Uganda, which was like a cool cultural thing, almost like Parliament versus like the royals, like in London, where it's like here's like the cultural leaders, and then here's like the political leaders, which are
Yes.
very different. And in Uganda, a lot of people really follow the kingdom leaders, it seems.
And I think even their associated tribes.
Yes.
And I know in Kampala it was cool because it's like a city of many hills, and each one kind of had its own something on it. Like
Yeah.
there were churches, there was the palace.
Oh, right.
Anyway, a lot of cool history. We got to spend the day kind of going around doing that.
Yeah. And then we came back to the Cassia Lodge for our second night. And then after that, it was out into the wild. I guess not, actually. See,
Well,
this is what I
Jinja.
mean. This is what I mean. I'm going to forget things. How could
can't
I
forget
forget?
Jinja.
Jinja. So we got up super early this day, like 5 a.m. Like they packed us a breakfast, which they did a lot, but that was very nice, and some coffee. And we drove for a while, like 2 hours, into the town of Jinja. And we went... This scared Bruce, I think, the most of the whole trip, was this experience.
Oh, yeah.
We went white river rafting on the Nile River. Bruce had never been white river rafting, but...
Well, no, we went once
Well, this was
before.
about to say.
Training.
We literally had to book a white river rafting trip before this trip at, like, the Hudson River. So, like, Bruce could do it at least once, because he was, like, really nervous. It was a class 5 rapids. So to be fair, like, I guess I understand, but I've been, a handful of times, and I was like, no, Bruce, like, you're going to love it. It's really not a big deal. It's going to be great. And you were like, I'm just really nervous and I get it. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm like, wait, what about like crocodiles and hippos in the water? And they're like, no, they're not here. And I'm like, okay, sure.
no, but that was real. It was like, if the water is flowing, they like still water.
That's true. So it's like they're not up in the rapids like that.
Not going to lie though. We went swimming at one point and I was like, I think I'm good. Like, I mean, I went in, but then I was like, all right, I'm getting back in. Like, I'm just
Well, we
not
had
going
to
to
go
test
swimming.
it.
We spent the first hour with these incredible guys. One of them was an Olympic like kayaker, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure.
Yes.
She was incredible, but like they did all the work. So
yes.
anyway, fears were calmed. I think I was exhausted though. A lot of fun. And then we finished with the Nile beer. That was always the Nile.
Oh, because that was another stop. See, we got this full itinerary of what we were doing, and then
just
George
kept
was
adding.
like, just kidding, I'm going to also do this, I'm going to also do this, I'm going to also do this. We did not pay a cent, except for tipping, after we got there. It was never like,
'cause we went to
we're going to
the-
do this, but you have to pay the entrance fee. Nope,
Yep.
George is getting all of it. And we did. We went to the source of the Nile, which is highly debated. I like to believe that we went to it.
Oh, I think we did. It was cool.
It was cool.
It's where Lake Victoria meets the Nile, but
Yeah.
there's also natural spring water mixing. You could see it come up
Yeah.
from like the earth.
It was very cool.
Very cool spot to go. So
Yeah.
that was the Ginger Day.
Yeah, we were definitely... So we went back to Cassia Lodge that night. That's what I forgot. And we were out. Like,
Yep.
we were so tired.
So we'll have to leave it there for today.
Such a cliffhanger.
I know.
We, like, barely started.
We're just at the tip of the Nile at this point.
Oh, my gosh. That was terrible. No, but we do have honestly, the best part's coming up. We have, like, chimp trekking, making coffee with locals.
The gorillas.
Oh, well,
we haven't.
obviously
I know.
the
We haven't got there.
gorillas.
Oh, and the banana gin.
Banana gin, Big Five. I mean, there's a lot.
There's so much more.
There's so much more. So please come back next week.
Stay tuned. And if you want a sneak peek go check out our Instagram because we've got some highlight reels with a lot of awesome pictures and videos from this
A little
trip.
bit of some spoiler alerts, but that's okay.
Check it out either way. I think it's fun.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Did you know that every time you book a Disney or Universal vacation, you're paying for a service that you may not even be using?
Really?
That's right. Travel agent costs are added to your Disney or Universal vacation, whether you use one or not.
So you're telling me that I'm paying for something even though I'm not getting the help?
You got it. So next time you want to book a theme park vacation, make your money work for you. By booking with Magic Pass Travel, you'll get our expertise and years of experience without paying any extra and while supporting a small business.
Check out our show notes to find our contact information.
Can't wait to help you plan your next adventure.